Hello, welcome to Tapping Together Our Part, the next installment. Something that has been shown to me over and over again is the predominance of shame in our culture right now. So today we're going to tap through that. So in a previous time we tapped with our fears, because fear can be sort of a companion and a good warning signal and something that we can kind of work with. But shame is not a companion. Shame is something we need to tap through. So today we're going to work on tapping through our shame. And this, there's no little shame, right? So this is kind of a big one. So feel free to pause, tap and pause, tap a little extra, go through, do what you need to do. Take it bit by bit. You don't have to do the whole video all in one go. But I do encourage you to kind of work through some of that shame. And the only way through it is through it. We're not going to go around. We're not going to bring it along for the ride. It's not a good companion. It's pretty inhibitive. So when we think of shame, we often think of like cave, darkness, hiding, closet. So you see I'm outdoors again today, and we're gonna open the doors. We're gonna let it move through. It wants to. It doesn't need. It has already pointed out what you want to change, what you want to do different. Probably millions, thousands, trillions of times, right? Shame has done its job, so we go through. We're gonna go right through the middle of it today. If you're new to tapping, you can just follow along. I'm Kirsten Keever-Smith. This is the pattern I use with Live Free, but you're welcome if you already have your own pattern and you want to do that instead. It's totally fine. It's very flexible. No prior experience is needed, so just work with what you've got and feel free to tap, pause, take a moment. All right? This isn't easy work. So we're going to start with our karate chop and drop our anchor. Even though I have this shame, I'm okay. Not okay about the shame, right? That's why it's there. But in general, I'm okay. I'm okay in this moment. And that's why I can choose to work on this right now. Even though I have this shame, I'm okay. Even though I have shame, and it feels heavy, and it feels big. I'm okay, right? And though I feel shame, I'm okay. We'll move to the inside of the eyebrow as you think about how big the piece you're tackling is. You don't have to do all the shame all at once. Think about something in particular you feel shame around. There's a lot of shaming going on in culture right now for things people say, do. It's helpful to call out, right? We all have behaviors we need to change, but shaming actually inhibits the process of that shame. So finding ways to invite people into growth without inhibiting the growth itself can be very helpful. Oh, and we're outside and you can hear all the noises of outside. Take a moment and just let that be, the sounds around us. Sort of perfectly timed in some ways. Yeah? So what piece of that shame do you want to take? Maybe it was something you said, maybe something you did, maybe a context. I have shame when I'm with my family. I have shame at work. I have shame online. Where is that place in space? And you want to rate that on a scale of 1 to 10, how big the piece you want to break off is. 10 being big, 1 being, I'm going to just nibble at the shame today. That's fine too. Let me start at the inside of the eyebrows. Let me tune in. Often I have you center in on your body. Shame can kind of move around and go all over, I have found. So if you can pinpoint it, if it's this feeling in your stomach or a heaviness in your chest, or many people wear like a mantle right? That we just put this shame on and we walk around with it and we carry it around with us all the time. Or it might be a temperature. If you're not pinpointing in the body, play with the idea of a temperature or a color today. Is shame this cold, sort of frozen, inhibiting feeling? Or maybe it's, often we think of that sort of the heat rising and the flushness. So maybe it's a hot heat rising up or a coldness pulling in. Whatever it is for you, you can find in the body, if it's a temperature or maybe a color. I'm going to talk about it as a creature because it often takes on a life of its own. So those are all options for you as we do inside the eyebrow, outside the eyebrow, under the eyes. You can do one or both sides. Under the nose. So the metaphor I'm going to use while you follow, if it's in the body, tap into it in the body. It's the temperature. Tap into that way a color. But we're going to talk about it as a creature altogether, and that can be sort of your guiding metaphor. And of course it's dark. This dark, blobby creature seems like it has a million arms that want to grab you when you least expect. Right? It creeps up, you think you've got this, you're doing well, you're rolling with it, and shame's there. Boom, reminding you over and over and over again. Doesn't this remind you of this? Oh, you might do that again. Oh, don't say that. Why did you say that? Maybe your creature has a voice, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's just sort of a menace. Maybe it has a specific voice. Sometimes shame sounds a lot like somebody, often older, somebody in authority in our life. That can be too. As we move to the next place, it's under your collarbone. And the first thing we want to do when we see that shame coming is run the other way, right? But today we're going to call in our protections. Maybe it's some armor. Maybe it's friends. Friends don't let friends confront shame alone, right? Whatever we kind of want to put on to distance, maybe we just want to enter it from a bubble. And something between you and the shame that allows you to approach it, whatever piece of it that you've decided. So we're going to do that. We're going to kind of dive in, and whatever armor, so maybe I'm going to dress up like a knight, and I have my breastplate, and I'm shiny, and I'm ready. And I'm going to have a torch, a flashlight, very bright, strong light to enter this. Because shame is a deceiver. Always, always, always. There's not much truth in shame. The original, the piece, the wanting to do better, there's your truth. But that shutting down, re-shaming over and over, you could never be forgiven, you can't. No, that's not where truth lives. So we need a light. And kind of cut through what we've been told, what it's grown to be, that snowball effect. So with our armor, our breastplate, everything we need, we move to the armpit, right? So it's often kind of a tender place somewhere back in here. If you can find it, and you do one, again, or both sides, a little shame hug. Always, always good. We're going to go in. We're going to shine our light. And we notice the feelings we feel about just thinking about going near that shame. That cesspit pool, that sticky, unrelenting pool of inky lies. It's not an accurate perception. There may be some truth in there, but it's migrated. It can't survive in that. So whatever's left, not true. It's not true. And so much of shame is completely not true. It is the other person's insecurities, concerns, fears that then get transferred into shame on you. Shame on you for making me feel afraid. No. We have a choice about how we feel. We have a choice about how we feel, right? Go through all the other videos if you need that one reinforced. We've got a choice about how we feel. So I can't put that on somebody else, my own feelings. I can say their actions I don't agree with. And so you can't take other people's feelings too. You made me feel this way and we'll shame you. No, you don't have to take that. Even if you're in the wrong, you can correct your actions without shame, right? We can do that. Shame inhibits. It freezes change. So as much as we want to point out all the injustices, the wrong things, yes, 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 and then let's get those people healthy enough to make the changes that we are inviting them to, right? Shame does not do that. It will stop the process of growth, of change, of healing in its tracks. We're going to go right through it. Right through it. And so in your own work, as you work to correct and change and grow, shame is not the tool you're going to reach for, right? You're going to reach for something else. You're going to reach for truth and light and hope and hard work and certainly asking for forgiveness. We can do that without the shame. All right. Whew. So as we armor up and we get ready to go through, we move to the top of the head. You can stay in the place, tapping through your feelings, your fear about going through, your concerns about going through, your worry about going through, your whatever it is that's coming up. Tap through those feelings about going through. And you can go several rounds. I mean, some people just, even the idea of approaching shame is pretty big, because that's the thing we don't want to look at, right? But we're just taking the feeling, not all those indiscretions, real, imagined, or put on you. Just taking that feeling of shame. And then you'll be so much more able to deal with anything, if there's anything there to deal with, right? So sometimes once we clear the shame, there's not much left to deal with, right? All that stuff you think you need to work on, is it still there once the feeling of shame is moved through? And what is the place that you are actually at and working on it? It often changes once the shame has been cleared. Maybe you've done a lot of work already and you just can't see it because of the shame. Or maybe you have a lot more to do than you thought, and that's okay too. Whatever it is, you can deal with it better than trying to do it in the dark, which is what shame does. All right. Did I stall enough? You through those feelings? If not, go ahead and push pause, because we're gonna start to enter through, and it's totally normal to do a few rounds of the feeling about approaching that shame. In fact, let's just do a quick. We're going to go back to the face points. Normally I go on to the hand, but I just want to do one more run through on the body points as you approach this. Honoring those feelings of not wanting to approach it is just fine. If you need more armor or a bubble or more protections or friends, or do whatever you need to, but it's time. You chose that piece to look at, so we're doing it. So get whatever you need so that you can do that. That feeling of fear, of worry, of concern, of whatever it is. And we're going to go. So we get the light, and until you can shine a light, you again are pausing. It feels too hard to shine a light, and it feels like I don't have a light. Tap through that feeling. The light is there. The light is always there. So tap through the feeling. So is the darkness. Right? Tap through that feeling. We're going to just move that feeling through about I can't, or I don't have the light, or whatever it is. It's just a feeling. The light's there. We share. Right? You don't have a light? You can borrow a light. I've got lots. Your friends have lots. We're all tapping together. You've got light. So once you have that, you're feeling safe and protected, and you have light, now we're going to move on to the hand points. And these are on the fingers. I like my head. Maybe you're noticing. You may have a spot that feels extra good. So you may notice when I tap, I often come back to the head in between a lot. It's totally fine if you have a spot that you like to come back to. So if you notice that, the head's always a good spot for me, and it's particularly coming up for this. I think shame's often here. make-believe land, right? So if you've got a spot, go ahead and put it in between. The fingers are on the edge. And the fourth finger is the only one that's underneath. If you don't want to remember, you can just squeeze or run your fingers down the ridges. Oh, I find that so soothing. Yeah, whatever feels good for you. Know my ears. Yeah, shame's an interesting... It's not a normal spot, but I'm feeling that too. Just follow your body. This one is wily. And we're not going to clear it all at once, and that's fine. All right. As we shine the light, maybe the sun just comes out. Huh? Sunshine? Right? Maybe we just invite more sunshine in, and that's what shines light. And maybe, oh, I like that. You can use your flashlight, but I really like the idea of shining the sun, and now we see the landscape around the shame. Let's put this in context. Because shame grows best in the dark, huh? Put it in context. Give it a full landscape in and around and behind this shame, so that we know what we're going through. We're going through into this maybe beautiful lake, the cabin, and a swing. I like to swing. And once we get through, we're going to rest. We got a place to rest waiting. So let's fill in the landscape. Let's bring the sun out. And if you're indoors, that's fine too. Give it a room, a space. Maybe turn the light on or open a window. I'm going to be outside, putting my shame in context. Sometimes that might bring up a little bit of anger. How dare you shame me? I have context for this. I was doing my best. How dare you shame me? Let that come too. How dare? Or sadness. Wow, I was trying so hard, and I know I completely messed up. Again, and again, and again. Especially around addiction shame, right? And you just pushed me back down. You shamed me yet again. And it felt like I had no choice but to turn back to my old pattern. It felt like that. And it feels really sad to think that that was a moment that I could have been helped. And instead, the pattern was reinforced. Right? Yeah, that happens. So we give... To go into our second round, notice how big that shame is feeling. How big is that shame, that color, that texture? If it was that creature black thing, is it as big as it was before? In context, it looks much smaller. Putting a landscape and context and everything behind and around it, shining the light on it, was... Maybe you're feeling more of this. That's not so hard to go through. If it's big, that's fine. We can still do big. But notice if it's shrinking. And if it hasn't shrunk and that feels like that would be helpful to you, pull out your shrink ray, or maybe notice how the light keeps eating at the edges, dissolving the edges of it. Notice it getting smaller, if that would be helpful. Not so much to go through after all. You've got your armor if you still need it. I think it's really small. You might be like, why am I carrying around all this armor? You dump it. But you've got your armor if you need it, your friends, your tools, your weapons, your light. Continue to shine that light bright on it. Watch it shrink. Notice how your body reacts. Wow, why was I carrying that around? Why was that haunting me? Almost like a cloud trailing after, waiting for me to mess up always. Always there. Pointing it out, reinforcing the pattern, the very pattern I'm trying to change. And we're just going to walk right through it. We're going to get through the other side and sort of face the music of the work that we really need to do. On the other side is the actual work, not the feeling of shame. Or the other side is freedom. If you've done the work, you just have freedom there. If you haven't done the work, it'll be clear now to you what needs to be done. And that's okay too. Now you can do it. Instead of this shame weighing you down, now you can do the work. An interesting thing for me in times right now and why shame is really coming up. And before we finish going through and settle in on the other side, I want to address this. Shame does not let us tell our stories, and it is time to tell our stories. This is shame. And we're getting that message over and over and over again for other reasons. And we're taking it as an invitation to shame and be shamed in our subconscious at times. Tell your story. All of it. We all have the whole story. And yours is yours, and it's not easy, but the world is full of those stories, so we can tell them. So this is also an invitation to tell your story of shame, and if you want to pause, do keep tapping, or if you want to go back to this, speak it out. We will be heard. We will be seen. I know the world looks like this right now. But we are still seen, we are still heard, and shame has no place in my body, in my life, in my mind, in my soul. No place. I will speak it out. I will go through it. And I will do my work. I will ask for forgiveness, or I will reject your inappropriate shame. Shame for things that are just me? No. I reject it. I'll walk right through it. Maybe there's nothing to walk through anymore. If it was shame not of your own making, shame somebody else tried to put on you, it may just disappear altogether. You have a choice about that feeling. Shame about your own actions and choices that you are wanting to improve on. No, but you got some work on the other side. Right? But now you can do the work. You can feel stronger. You can choose. But often, we think shame's about one thing. Shame about a behavior, maybe an addictive behavior. But the addictive behavior is often there to cover the shame we already feel. Shame about something somebody did to us. So go to that. And then feel what you really feel about that addictive behavior, recognizing or pattern or way of being, recognizing it was a tool and maybe the only tool you felt you had at the time, but you can choose other tools now. And that shame doesn't have to keep pulling you back to that. Yeah? So much here. There's so much in shame, maybe I have to do multiple parts. There's so much here. Oh, friends, I can feel all your, there's so much here. So just take a nibble. Just take a nibble. Redo this. Identify that shame. Put it outside yourself. It's not yours. Shine a light. Give it context. Shrink it down. Go through it, whatever. But this is not your way forward. Your way forward has hope and strength. It has tools. And perhaps that shame was misplaced. I can decide that a behavior isn't what I want or who I want to be without the shame. I can see that behavior brought up shame in me. I can see that shame originated in a spot long ago and triggered the behavior. And I can see that releasing that shame, that inaccurate perception, that story somebody else told about me, makes the behavior feel less necessary. Gives me more choices. So friends, if you have gone through, maybe it's just sort of fizzled out. Shame doesn't do well when we add truth. It doesn't thrive. When you see and you uncover the origins and see what somebody else put on you, or a pattern you accepted and put on yourself, usually doesn't stick around. Coming to under here to the rib cage. It's a good spot. Usually doesn't stick around. But if there's anything left, there may not be. Or you just want to ensure that it doesn't come back. No thank you, I see you for what you are. Goodbye. Then we can give whatever's left over to nature, or invite nature to act as a filter for any shame that would like to return. Closed for business shame. You don't really have a place in my life. I can recognize, again, I want to keep emphasizing it, I can recognize, ask for forgiveness, even a bit of regret, sure. But shame, I don't really, I'm not inviting you in. I'm telling you to move along. I've moved through. And so then we can either give nature what's left over, throw it in the lake, let the lake just cleanse and purify, running water, a waterfall, river, whatever feels good. It can just dissipate on the air, float away. The atmosphere can cleanse it and clean it. We can blow it on the wind. I often use putting things in the ground, but shame, I encourage you not to bury your shame, right? Doesn't feel right for this particular one. But layering it on the soil, just kind of mixing it in, almost like composting. We can use the earth that way. Burning. But I really like the idea of water. If you're undecided, I would head towards the direction of water for this. And then inviting in nature as a filter for when that shame wants to be given again. So either imagining sort of this growing vine around you, or running water through you, or this constant filtration and cleansing system. Because as soon as you go out your door, which maybe some of you aren't really doing right now, or you turn on the news, right? It doesn't even have to be, that's the thing, we thought we'd all go home and hide and then cover up and like, oh, shame can't get me now. And no, if it's found its way in, right? This article, the story, the judgment, on and on and on and on and on. If you all aren't tapping when you are on your devices reading this media, think about that. If you're going to watch news, only watch it while tapping is my 2 cents. You're going to read those comments, tap while you read them. Don't accumulate collective fear, shame. all of that, right? So when we go back out, whatever that means for you, in or connecting out, right? Imagine nature as a filter. You can't fool a tree. You can fool a human for a while. Can't fool a tree. So let nature, water, whatever, be your filter. So any sort of shame that is directed at you has to be filtered through so that you can get like, oh, you're telling me you're afraid. Well, let me help you feel more safe. Oh, you're telling me you're angry at me. Well, let me understand why instead of the shame. Okay? So we go through, we release. Any other points? Just love. I mean, shame just lives so many places. So if you've got other places and spaces, and you just enjoy that. Feels good. I love tapping with you all. And then we're going to come back and we're going to put our filter in place. And we'll do this again and again. Whatever little bite you took, you can repeat this process with other things as they come up. Yeah? And so just notice about that shame, how big it is or isn't. The piece that you started with. Don't go looking at the new pieces yet. That piece, even though I feel this shame, I'm okay. How big is that original? Just notice that. If there's more to work on, keep it up. If there's not, celebrate. And when you're ready to take another piece, it'll be easier. This can be developing sort of a shame protocol right now. I highly recommend, so that putting on your armor, shining the light, going through, bringing in nature as a filter. You can keep that process going regularly. There's a lot of shame in our culture right now. And behind it is some really good stuff sometimes. But let's all do our work to clear out the shame so that the actual change that's being called for can take place, and the health that we want, and the security, the safety, the joy, the connection, all those things that we're trying to get back. We will not shame them into being. We will hope them, we will grow them, we will joy them, we will brave them into being. And so the shame, just go right through it, friends. Thank you for tapping together apart. And uncover that beauty that shame has been hiding from your own sight. I see it, and I hope that you can see it too.